Asked my parents to stay with my wife for a month while she is pregnant, but they made her do all the housework despite doctor's orders not to overexert herself, so I banned them from meeting my twins after they refused to apologize. My parents and I have always had a moderately close relationship, and up until a few months ago, we got along well enough. We stopped speaking after a particular incident, when they really treated my wife very disrespectfully and insensitively. She was about 5 months along at the time, and she has not had an easy pregnancy. We knew that she was carrying twins by the second trimester, and she had extreme levels of morning sickness, to the point where she found it difficult to even get herself to stand up straight after being sick. She also had varicose veins, she was fatigued and exhausted all the time, and it was just a very difficult time for her. And then, I was offered a short-term position as a project manager, and it was a huge deal because they were offering me a lot of money for just 1 month. My wife knew it was a big deal for me, so she pushed me to take it up, even though I was quite skeptical about leaving her alone back home. I did ask her parents to come over and stay with her for a couple of days while I would be gone, just so that I would know that she would be taken care of, but unfortunately, that did not work out because her parents had their own business to take care of, and they couldn't find anybody else to cover for them. So eventually, I ended up asking my own parents to move into my house for just 1 month and look after my wife because I just did not want her to be alone, for my own peace of mind. And they agreed quite happily. They had always had a good relationship with her, so I didn't think that anything could go wrong, but it did. For the first 2 weeks while I was away, my wife sounded pretty normal, but then I started realizing that she sounded really tired all the time, and she would also be pretty snappy with me. I didn't understand what was happening. I even asked her if she wanted me to come back earlier after 2 weeks had elapsed, but she insisted that I stay because this was important for me. I just chalked up the difference in her behavior to hormones and tried not to think much about it. And then, after 1 month, I finally came back, and a couple of days later, my parents moved out. During that time, I could tell that things had not exactly gone down with my wife and parents because the energy was very weird and things were quite tense. And finally, after they had left, my wife and I had a discussion about what had happened, and she finally told me that she didn't want me to worry about her while I was away, and she wanted me to be able to focus on my work, which is why she hadn't told me anything about what was happening with her while I was gone. But now that I was here, she wanted me to know that my parents had been absolutely horrible with her. Apparently, even though she had constantly said that she couldn't bring herself to work all the time, they didn't seem to care about her and made her work like a housemaid, and instead of helping her out, which is what I had asked them to stay with her for, they had instead made her work double of what she would have to do if she had been on her own. She ended up doing all the chores, because my parents complained that they were too old to be doing all this, which is really not true. They do all the chores by themselves at home, because they don't like spending money on help. So it's not like they're not used to it, and they knew that my wife was having trouble dealing with the pregnancy and stuff, so this is the least that they could have done for her instead of making her work even harder. And as if that was not bad enough, they would go out of their way to create tasks for her and tell her that staying active was the only way for her to have a healthy pregnancy and birth, because otherwise, if she started getting lazy, things would get even worse for her. And she didn't want to waste her time and energy arguing with them, so she eventually ended up doing whatever they asked her to, and every day, she was just exhausted, and she just wanted them to leave. But she didn't want to be rude, so she put up with them until I came back, but now, she wanted some space away from them. I was obviously very upset when I heard this, and I immediately confronted my parents about it, and they did not deny it. They said that my wife was just being paranoid and hysterical, and that there was nothing wrong with her, even though the doctors had said that she shouldn't overexert herself, and I wanted them to trust me on that, but they said that they had also seen a lot of pregnancies in their day, and they didn't believe in any of this namby-pamby nonsense. They told me that we were being too soft, and instead of trying to understand where I was coming from, they told me that I should be thanking them for doing me and my wife a favor by not letting her lie around all day. That was too much for me to handle, so we got into a pretty bad fight, and after that, we didn't speak to each other at all. They were not even there for the birth of my twins, and I was absolutely unbothered because the way they had treated my wife was not acceptable to me at all. And unless they apologized to both of us, I didn't want anything to do with them. So keeping that in mind, recently, when they showed up at my house to try and see the kids, I told them that they were not welcome here until they apologized to us. And even then, they kicked up a fuss in front of my house, saying that we couldn't treat them like this, and as grandparents, they had every right to see their grandchildren. But even then, I stood my ground, and I didn't let them in, and eventually, my dad told me that this was a huge overreaction, and said that I was being disrespectful. He said that I was going to regret this in the future, and I don't know, I'm feeling kind of bad about it right now. You guys think I went overboard? Ida for refusing to let my parents see my babies because of how they treated my wife while she was pregnant? Update 1. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for all the comments that we received, it really means a lot to us. I spoke to my wife about how I was feeling. I told her that I was feeling kind of weird and guilty, and she told me that if I really wanted to, then I could definitely go ahead and invite my parents over and try to smooth things over with them. But she would prefer to stay out of it for now, because she doesn't feel like she's ready to talk to them at the moment, especially considering the fact that even after I had confronted them, they never bothered to reach out and apologize. But I told her that if she was not ready, then I would not contact them either. Because right now, nobody else is my priority apart from her and the babies. And if my parents feel hurt right now, they can deal with it on their own. I really can't do anything about it. It's true what she said, they had enough time to reach out and apologize to both of us, but they chose not to do that. So now, they cannot be so entitled and pretend like we are the bad guys just because we don't want to let them back into our lives, when they're not even sorry for how they behaved. And most importantly, this is my life, my family, and I get to choose who gets to be a part of this. I'm not gonna let their guilt trip talk me into letting them back into our lives, especially when they disappointed me so much the last time. Anyway, now that that's out of the way, there are a few things that I wanted to address that people have been commenting about. So a couple of people found it pretty entitled of me to have asked my parents to stay with my wife for 1 month and to watch over her while she was pregnant while not offering anything in return. And you guys certainly did not mince your words about it either. So let me just say that, first of all, it was not a compulsion. They could have definitely said no. I had just asked very casually if they would like to do that for me as a favor, and I made it very clear that it would be a favor to me. I couldn't offer them anything, because we have been saving money for the past couple of months for the babies, and they are my parents, so I didn't think that I would need to pay them. But even if they had asked for it, I don't think I would have said no. In fact, even if they had declined, I wouldn't have left my wife back home alone while she was pregnant and struggling to do things on her own. And I'm just putting it out there, I know a lot of people even commented that my wife was overreacting and that my parents were right and I should actually have been grateful to them, but I think the doctors and my wife and I know what we're doing. She had been advised medically not to exert herself too much, and that's what we were trying to ensure. So even if my parents declined to stay with her, I would have shelled out some money and we would have made it work, and we would have just hired somebody, like a housekeeper or a maid or a nurse, to be there with her and help her with all the chores and stuff. But I decided to count on my parents because they said yes, and I knew that they got along well with my wife, so I didn't see any of this coming. They knew all about her struggles, the advice her doctor had given her, and I had even told them how I wanted them to help her out myself, but they ignored all of that and chose to do whatever they wanted. It's very disrespectful, and was totally unnecessary. If they planned on doing that in the first place, then they should have just declined instead of putting my wife through all of that. Just because my wife's situation was different from whatever limited knowledge they had about pregnant women, they decided that they knew better and overruled everything that I had told them and ignored everything that my wife complained about. And she was in a pretty bad state for that 1 month, and even for a couple of weeks after that, she was so exhausted that she could hardly get herself to do anything. So it's not like we didn't face the consequences of what they put her through, and never did they apologize for it even once. So if anybody still thinks that I'm entitled just because I asked them to help me out, then I have nothing to say. Because I know for a fact that even if they had declined, I wouldn't have minded. But their decision to ignore everything that we had said and do things their own way, no matter how inconvenient and troublesome for everyone else, and then never apologizing and pretending like they had been in the right all along, I think that's true entitlement. But whatever, it doesn't matter anymore. I've already made up my mind and I'm not going to be reaching back out to them to repair our relationship for now at least. I'm busy with my wife and the babies, our family, and for now, everything else can wait. Update 2. Hey, everybody. It's been 2 months since my babies were born and about a month since I last spoke to my parents. After I told them that I did not want to talk to them at the door and I told them to go away, they did not try to reach out to me again until yesterday. In the beginning, I did feel a bit odd about it, but honestly, I didn't have much time to worry about them. I was swamped with work, household chores, taking care of the babies, and everything else. So I really had a lot on my plate, and I had completely forgotten about the whole situation with my parents. It was good for a while, but then, yesterday, they called me up again, and when I didn't pick up the first few times since I was napping, they decided to tell me that they had something important to discuss with me and that I needed to call them back as soon as possible. So as soon as I woke up, I checked my phone and then I called them back after thinking about it for a while, because I thought that maybe they were sick or something and I didn't want to risk anything. I'm not on good terms with them at the moment, but they are still my parents and I'm their only child, so because of that, I called them up. And then, as soon as they picked up, they started telling me that it had been a month since they had last tried to get in touch with me, but after that, I had not even bothered to try and reach out to them once. They told me that it was very disappointing that I was treating them like this, even though they hadn't even done anything that bad. My mom told me that I was being very egoistic and he didn't expect this sort of behavior out of me, and she said that my father had been very upset for the past few weeks. They kept expecting me to call but I never did, and all of a sudden, she started blaming my wife for it. She told me that she was pretty sure that it was my wife who was trying to push them away, because even while they were staying with her and trying to do what was best for her, they kept getting this feeling that she did not appreciate them being around. She said that she resented the way that we were treating them right now, and that we need to be more respectful of them, and even now, it's not that late and we can fix things by arranging to meet and talk things out. And the crazy thing is, I might have agreed. I actually might have said yes, to sort things out with them if they had taken a different approach to the situation. But then, once again, they had tried to paint themselves to be the victims in the situation, when that was clearly not the case. Even now, they were bent on the fact that we should have reached out to them and apologized to them. And that's what really put me off. I couldn't believe that they were still harping on about that. So while we were on the call, I told them that I had no intention of sorting things out with them because clearly, they were living in delusion even now. I told them that the way they had treated my wife while she was pregnant was very disrespectful, and if they couldn't bring themselves to apologize for that, then I'm afraid nothing can be done about the situation we are in right now. I asked them if they would be willing to apologize to my wife, and they very bluntly said no. They were about to explain themselves as well, but I told them that since they hadn't said no, just as I had expected, it was all settled, and I didn't need to hear anything else. While they were trying to speak, I cut them off and hung up, and then I told my wife about the phone call. She seemed to be a little sad, and she told me that it was very upsetting that even now, they were acting like this, like whatever they had done was all justified somehow. And she told me that the actual thing that was making her sad was that she actually got along well with them before any of this happened. So it's not like she would not be open to reconciling with them. And I was right, if they had just said they were sorry, we would have made an effort to repair our relationship. But the way they were being stubborn, so as to dodge the consequences of their own actions, that was what was really annoying. And we decided that now, unless they apologize, we are not even going to be interacting with them. No phone calls, no messages, nothing at all. I think that's the best way to deal with the situation right now, because otherwise, they're just not going to get it. I don't think they even get it right now, the seriousness of what had happened. If they want to have a relationship with us and the babies, they're going to have to apologize. There's no two ways about it. Update 3. So hey, everyone. It's been 2 weeks since my last update, and after that phone call, my parents tried to contact me via text and email a couple of times, but I just muted them. If it was not an apology that they were offering, then I was not interested. I did read their messages and emails periodically every couple of days for the first week, but then, when I realized they were only trying to cover it up for themselves and were just trying to justify everything, I stopped going through their messages altogether. Because it was just very disappointing to see this kind of behavior coming from my parents, especially when we had had a normal relationship for so long. And so far, they had always texted me, but they had avoided interacting with my wife altogether. In a way, it was good, because I didn't want them speaking to her. Especially because I knew how they felt about her right now, so I thought it would be better if they didn't interact with her at all. But then, a couple of days ago, they decided to reach out to her with a really insulting message. They sent her a text a couple of days ago, at around 9 in the morning, which is a crazy timing to send disrespectful texts like the one they sent. Basically, they told her what they had said to me on the phone call. That they blamed her for the way I was behaving right now, as if I were a child who had no free will. They told her that it was very nasty of her to be manipulating me into believing that they had been horrible to her, when in fact, they had been trying to help her. And in the end, they said that they wanted her to apologize, and they wanted her to tell me the truth, that they had actually been trying to help her, and she, being lazy, did not appreciate that and did not even try to understand that they were being helpful, so she purposefully misinterpreted their actions and painted them to be the villains, and now, she is continuing to manipulate me and alienate me from them. It was very insulting, because it just implied that she was finding it hard to do things around the house because she was lazy, and that was not true at all. I think I've mentioned it about 100 times by now, but she had literally been told by the doctors not to exert herself too much, or it could lead to even more exhaustion and fatigue. That is literally the only reason why I'd asked them to stay with her, and I can't believe that they are still trying to defend themselves and have even gone to the extent of involving her and making her look like the manipulative one. I also really don't understand why they keep acting as if I did not have any say in this. I'm not a child, I can make my own decisions, and it's not like my wife keeps me under her thumb. We are both adults, we are respectful of each other's opinions. That's how things work between normal people, so I don't know why they are blaming her for my actions now. Because ultimately, these are my choices, since I have decided that I don't want to talk to them right now. She, in the beginning itself, had told me that I was free to speak to my parents and was even willing to let the kids interact with them. She just said that she didn't want to talk to them herself. But I was the one who had chosen to put up a united front, because if my wife was not talking to my parents, I did not want to get into it either. So they could not be farther from the truth when they accuse her of trying to manipulate me and trying to keep me away from them or whatever it is that they are accusing her of. They have no idea what's going on, and it's really despicable that they're trying to put the whole thing on my wife. She was pretty upset by their message in the morning, and after I spoke to her, I decided to call my parents up and confront them about it. I was not hoping for any sort of apology from them, but I had stopped hoping for quite some time now. Surprisingly though, this time it was they who were trying to ignore me, probably because they had realized that I was not going to be happy about this, and this was going to make the situation even worse for them. But I didn't give up. I wanted them to acknowledge what they had done, so I called them a bunch of times, and finally, after almost 10 minutes, they answered the phone call. My dad picked up, and he immediately told me that if I was calling to talk about that message that they had sent to my wife, then it was pointless because they were not willing to discuss that. At the end of the day, they knew that what they had said was right, and if I was going to get defensive about it, it was just going to prove them right. That she actually was manipulating me and trying to get me to go against them. I knew that they thought that they had got me cornered at that point of time, but honestly, I really didn't care about their opinions. I told them that they could not be further from the truth, and I explained the situation to them, about how she had been fine with me interacting with them, but it had been my choice not to do so. So the fact that they were trying to blame her, not only was it misogynist, it was also really stupid of them, because now, they look like fools, and given how disrespectful they had been towards her, they dug the hole deeper for themselves, since now, I'm going to cut them out of my life altogether. Before this, we had been willing to accept their apology and try to repair our relationship if they had tried to reach out to us and apologize, but now, that's not happening at all. Once again, on the phone, they tried to argue with me, but I hung up before that. Now this happened a couple of days ago, and after that, until today, we didn't speak at all. They couldn't, because I blocked them afterwards. And so did my wife, and we were happy. But then, this morning, my parents turned up at our door. And once again, they chose around 8 a.m. to show up. Now this is around the time that I leave for work, and even though my wife is working from home right now, it's not like she's sitting at home and doing nothing. Both of us are busy for the rest of the day, so we like to make the most of this time period before work, and we really don't like any interruptions during this time. So when they showed up, we were determined not to go to the door at all, and we just pretended that we were already not at home. We figured that eventually, they would tire out and leave. But then, the more we ignored them, the louder they got. And after a while, the baby started stirring and fussing and crying. So that's when I finally decided to go to the door, open it and talk to them. And I was very annoyed by that time already. So when I opened the door, I told them straight up that I did not want to talk to them. And if they behaved like this, then they were just going to be ruining their own chances of reconciling with us. But to my surprise, they told me that they were not even here to reconcile. They were just here to inform me that they had also decided that they were going to cut us off. My mom told me that they had thought about it, and they had decided that the way I was behaving was not acceptable. So until I decided to change my mind, they had decided that they were going to leave everything to my cousins. They said that they were very unfortunate because they had never had any other kids. They always figured that as long as they had me, they were in need to worry about things like this. But now, since I had started obeying my wife more, it was clear that they were not a priority for me. I was pretty irritated, so I told them that they were right about that. They were not a priority for me right now. It was my family, my wife and kids, that were top priority for me at the moment. And if they couldn't respect and understand that, maybe it was better that we cut each other off. They flared up at that statement, and they told me that they had already spoken to a lawyer, and they had started the procedure of changing their will, and they were just here to tell me that. I just shrugged and said nothing, because I don't even know what exactly they were expecting me to say. When they realized that they were not going to get a reaction out of me, the thing that they had come all the way here for, they stormed off, muttering under their breath, and I knew that they were cursing me and my wife, but I didn't care. I was just glad that they left, without creating more of a fuss, and then I got back to my wife and my kids. It was not very pleasant, and I have already made up my mind that the next time that they show up like this and harass us, I'm just gonna call the cops. Because I don't have to deal with this. Things are getting pretty out of hand, and I guess they just can't accept the fact that I'm not gonna apologize for something as basic as standing up for my wife. If they are expecting that, then they are going to be disappointed. And I really don't care about their money. They can give it away to whoever they want to. The only reason I'm working hard is so that I don't have to rely on anyone else. So I don't understand why they think this was going to affect me. But whatever, I really just hope that they get the hint and stay away from us now. Update 4. Hey, so it's been 3 months since my last update, and so far, my parents have not contacted me. Today, coincidentally, we happened to be in the local grocery store at the same time, and we ran into each other, and it was pretty awkward. We were fine with just ignoring them and walking past, but they made a whole show of turning their faces away, refusing to even look at us, and pretending as if we were contaminated somehow. I knew that the desired effect was to disturb us, but we just found it very funny. It's sad that they are being so immature about the whole thing, because they are ultimately missing out on time with their grandkids, and their only son, but this is their choice. And I can't help it, so I'm not gonna bother myself about it either. They've made their choice, they can live with it now.